All right, so I'd like to use this video to highlight some of the issues we're having with maintaining internet access on our nested VMs. So I'll show you a few things, including the template I'm using to create the classes that I'll be using. So here in the background, you can see I'm running a test Windows Server 2019 Data Center Edition. Right now it has Hyper-V only, no DHCP, no routing and remote access. The updates are current as of 5 minutes ago. This image has been exported to the gallery, and this is the image that I will be importing. For this VM, we're going to use the GCOM provided instructions for providing internet access to the nested VMs using DHCP server. That one I've had success with up to 2 reboots of the nested VM. Usually the first or second time I reboot the nested VMs, they lose their ability to access the internet. Lastly, I want to show the more Microsoft preferred way is to use routing and remote access. But within the Azure Labs environment, I have not yet gotten that to work at all. Now, obviously, it's because we at L-Tri-C, we don't control the underlying host. I think at least that's part of it. So anyway, let's get started. So here is my current template. Okay, Hyper-V is the only role installed. No DHCP, no routing remote access. Updates are current as of a few minutes ago. Just a couple things I do want to point out. Here's the name of the server, because you'll see that my templates, obviously, they all look the same. So each will have a notepad document here with the name of the template I'm using. I run desktop info. It is similar to Microsoft's BG info. Don't know why the video here is buggered up as far as the physical RAM and the CPUs go. But I do like that because it allows me to put this little note here reminding students changes we make are not going to be made to this host. We're going to make them to the nested VMs. Along with other things such as the IP address, MAC address, and things like that if we need it. Also, this template was put together for our CIS 255 database environment class. So you'll see that we have the Java Development Kit and SQL Developer here in the Downloads folder. This makes it easier for the students to be able to grab from this host and copy these files into their nested VMs. Lastly, because this isn't an operating systems class, I have pre-built 2 virtual hard disk files based on what operating system we plan on using. Here's a VHD file for Server 2019 Data Center Edition. Here's another one for Windows 10 Professional. Okay, so I'll stop this VM right now and I'll start booting up some of the other templates that I have. But before I do that, I'll show you where I'm working from. So the VM we're currently looking at is this one. Okay? Windows Server 2019, I'm using large nested virtualization, so that the largest nested VM one I can get. But now I'll have to stop this one and then boot up the other ones individually because they all use the same internal IP address. So I'll pause the video here, shut this one down, and then start up the next one. Okay, we're back. So I had to power down this VM so I could power up this one. One of the questions I'm going to have, if I want to run multiple classes concurrently, am I allowed to change this internal public IP address of 10.0.0.4? All of the VMs I build, obviously because they come from the same template, they should be configured identically. So I didn't expect any less. The problem is it takes 20 minutes for one of these things to boot up. So that's a separate question though. So you can see right now, I've built a VM called Test DHCP. It has all of the same downloads as my template VM. Now, for this one, we're going to follow the GCOM instructions. Now, I did install the DHCP role already on this one. I have not done its post-installation configuration. So let's get that started. Okay, so I have met all the prerequisites. Hyper-V DHCP already installed. Obviously, with the DHCP role, I'm getting the warning because the IP address assigned to the network interface card is dynamically assigned, and DHCP servers should, by best practice, have a static address, but I did not want to make that change, just in the off chance that me making changes to the underlying configuration may cause some of these issues. Okay, so I'll move this to the other screen, and we're going to follow the instructions here. So I can close all of this. All right, so let's bring up Hyper-V, and we'll create the switch, the second switch, which will connect this nested VM to. Okay, so right now I don't have any VMs, and I only have the default built-in switches. So I'll get the VM created with the virtual hard disk file that I had previously downloaded. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I have a new VM built, Win10 Workstation 01. I'll just show you the changes I made. Dynamic memory starting at 2 gigs, ending at 4 gigs. A little overkill, I know. I did give it 4 cores. The network adapter is currently not connected because I have not created the second virtual switch as called for in the instructions. So we'll start here at step 1 and we'll walk through them. Okay, so we'll create a new internal switch. And you can really call it whatever you want, but I'll follow the instructions here. We'll call it internal NAT. We'll make sure that it's internal. We will click OK. Now, before I forget, I'll modify the settings of this VM again, and we'll connect it to that straight away. Okay. Okay, so that is step 1 completed. Step 2, I jumped into the control panel here, and you can see I've got my new internal switch. Now I'm going to do something a little different than what the instructions call for, and I'll explain why. The instructions call for using an IP address 192.168.0. I'm going to use .137. So instead of the 192.168.0 subnet, I'm going to use 192.168.137. The reason being, when I would normally do this for a Windows server, I set up routing and remote access. I set up 2 NICs on the host box. When I enable LAN routing, the default subnet that gets assigned is the 137 subnet. So that's the only modification I'm making to these instructions. I'm using 137 here instead of 0, but everything else will be identical. No gateway, no DNS specified. Okay, so that completes step 3. Step 4, we're going to the sharing tab, and we're going to enable ICS, or Internet Connection Sharing. Okay, now, I don't, for some reason, get the box here that allows me to choose which, oh, that's my bad, hold on. I'm on the wrong NIC, sorry. We're going to cancel that. Cancel that, and we're going to this one. Sorry, that's my fault. Well, it happened here too. What I'm trying to do here is step 4. I want to select the network interface card that is giving my host machine access to the internet. And so I'll cancel here, I'll cancel out of this one. Okay. This is the internal network address translation. This is the network that my VMs are going to get connected to. However, this is the NIC that gives this host access to the internet. And I guess I should have tested this initially, but let's go to msn.com just to make sure I can. Okay, so the internet is working. Let's just do a test search. Okay, so the internet is working on my host. Right, this is my host and not my VM, not yet. Okay, so I have to enable internet connection sharing on the NIC that gives us that access. Now I'm expecting a box, a dialog box here that allows me to choose which NIC I'm sharing, or which NIC I'm sharing with. For some reason, I'm not getting that box. Now, when I tested this last night, I was allowed to choose here. Let's just go to settings. We're not going to make any changes to the PIDs or process IDs here, so we'll cancel that. We are going to allow other network users, sure. Okay. I'll hit OK. Okay. This is why I wanted to set up the internal NAT at 137. Now we're going to say yes here. We're going to wait for this to finish, and I want to double check that this did not get modified. Okay, still 137. Now here in a few seconds, desktop info should update itself, and it should show me that I have 2 NICs running. Okay, this triangle here is telling me that I don't have DHCP configured yet. All right, so it took a few seconds, but now you can see I've got the built-in NIC and the NIC we just added, 137.1. And just to be safe, let's ping both. If this ping fails, we've got bigger issues. Okay, so it works for both NICs. All right. So that is step 4 completed. We have internet connection sharing. So let's verify that again. Measure twice, cut once, right? Oops, sorry. This one. Okay, so we are allowing ICS. Good, good, good. All right, so now we should be at the point where we're configuring DHCP. Okay, so move this over here. Again, I'm going to use 137 in place of 0. And while that's happening, I might as well get this thing booted up. Well, let's step through DHCP. All right, let's make a new scope. And again, call it whatever you want here, but .137, and I'm going to start at 101 and end at 110. I never see a scenario where we're going to need more than 10 internal VMs. Now the mask is fine as it is. I know the mask for the 10 dot network is 240 right here, but that should have no bearing at all on which mask we're using here. Okay, I'm not excluding anything. I'll set the lease duration for the entire month. Again, we're using so few. Yes, I want to configure a router, which should be the IP address of the NIC on the host. Okay, and let's just, shouldn't matter what I put here. Normally I would add Google's Quad 8 and the Quad 9 IP addresses for DNS, but in the interest of not doing anything extra, let's just do that. We're not running wins. Yes, we'll activate. Okay, so we're on the internal NAT scope. All right, not entirely sure what happened there. RDP kicked me out. I could not reconnect, so I had to stop the template and restart it. So just let's go back and make sure. Okay, so my DHCP scope is built. See that it's added. It is active. Okay, so DHCP Hyper-V, both okay. Back in Hyper-V, my virtual switch manager, you can see I've got the internal, and my Windows 10 workstation is running. So let's connect to that. Okay, so we're signed into the VM here. No internet connectivity. Let's give it a second because I did just sign in. Okay, so here's DHCP 137.101 with a gateway of 168.137.1. All right, now sometimes this can be attributed to the firewall, but before I start making additional changes, let's bring the instructions back over. Okay, so we've completed step 5. Okay, step 6. And DNS. Okay, let's verify that I did that because I don't think I configured DNS. Okay, that is right. I left the DNS server entry what was there by default. So let's see, let's add quad 8s, whoops. Let's add quad 9s. All right, so we'll okay that. We'll get back in here. Okay, now let's do this. Let's ensure the DNS numbers come over. Okay. All right, so in this example, I have DNS set up properly, DHCP set up properly. The gateway address of this nested VM. Okay, now let's do this, just in the off chance. Now while that's loading up, yeah, sometimes the Windows firewall, excuse me, will block ICMP traffic. So I'm just going to enable all of it, all the file and printer sharing. I'm not even going to bother looking at what profile it is. So we'll just enable all of it. Again, I'm trying to eliminate us blocking something. So that's why I'm not spending any time going through each of those individually. So just for the heck of it. Okay, should be able to ping myself. I should now be able to ping. Okay, let's make this change over here. So I'm on the host now. So we'll minimize this. Okay, so I'm on the Azure Labs host, and I'm going to do the same thing here. Sort by name will allow all ICMP traffic. Okay, so I can ping from the nested VM to the host's 137. Can't ping out. And now this is typically what happens. I can't speak for what goes on in Sue's class, but I know my nested VM examples. I've tested this. This is the third time. The first time it worked until I rebooted once. Second time worked until I rebooted the nested VM twice. Upon the reboot after that second restart, I was getting no connectivity. I was getting the little globe icon here. I was unable to ping out. And this specific case, it didn't work at all. So I'm going to bring the instructions back over, and we're going to go through them, just a quick review to make sure I didn't miss anything. Sorry, I don't mean to make you motion sick there. All right, so step one is to create the internal NAT. Let's just verify that I have all of that done. Okay, it's an internal network. And again, the name is irrelevant, but let's call it what the instructions call it. Internal NAT, it's an internal network. We're not using VLAN IDs. Okay, step two on the host, we'll go to the control panel. We've assigned a static address, no gateway. Now, I haven't tried this with the gateway, but again, we're just verifying here. I might come back later and test that. Okay, so that's step three. Now we're going to take the external. We'll set up ICS. Again, I'm concerned that I don't get the drop-down box here, but I'm going to hit cancel here because I unchecked and rechecked, and I don't want any changes to take effect. That's step four. Step five. Okay, we're gonna double check this information. Okay, the router should be set to 137.1 and DNS. Okay, so we'll minimize that. We're going to look at the scope. 137 matches 137 /24 matches /24. 31 days, that's fine. Didn't make any changes here. Not going to make any changes here. I could potentially change always update because I'm not sure how a nested VM works, whether or not the DHCP client, although I do believe when I modified the DHCP scope and then renewed. Okay, still not connected, that's fine. All right, not going to make any changes here. Not going to make any changes here. So please let me know if you see that I quickly did something, skipping over a step. I'm pretty sure I followed all the steps as they are written. The one thing I am going to try while we're in this video, I know this video is running long here, so I don't want to make it run much longer. Let's try this. All right, so I'm on the internal NAT. This shouldn't work, but I'm going to try it because we're here. This gateway is outside this subnet, so I may get a warning here. Yeah, sure, why not? Let's try it. Normally, I would set that up through routing and remote access, through the LAN routing piece. I would be very surprised if this works. Okay, still no connectivity. So I'll stop the video there because I'm coming up on 25 minutes and that's really long. So my apologies for the length of the video, but I did want to make sure that I went through every step twice. And then you can pause the video at various points to see what you think.